Hi everybody, my name's Doug. You can find me on Twitch as turtle_dub, so that is where you can find me. I don't play Flight Simulator there, I play mostly The Sims and GeoGuessr and other fun stuff, but it's mostly just a place where we go hang out, so go check me out on Twitter. So today, what I am doing, for the first time recorded anyway, is I will be flying a mock flight of one that I actually went out and found. And so far what I've done is set up my aircraft, departure and arrival airports. So in this case, let's see if I can get there. I did set myself up using the fly-by-wire A320, and then I've got the route going from Minneapolis to Denver. It's KMSP to KDEN. Don't feel like I needed to specify that. You probably know those. Anyway, what I do here is I find an actual flight. So in this case, I looked at this one that's en route from Denver to Minneapolis, or correction, from Minneapolis to Denver right now, which is Delta Flight 1258. Now, in real life, there's some weather out in Denver that is causing this guy to hold because the Denver TRACON can only handle so many arrivals when they got storms on the field. And I don't know if they were ground stopped earlier or what the case may be. But what I am going to do is pick up this flight, simulate it, and so I'm just going to steal a lot of stuff that the very talented dispatchers at Delta already did, including their routings. Our departure on this one is going to be the Shep 9 departure. Our arrival into Denver is going to be on the Alley 2. And our arrival runway at Denver, runway 16 of some sort, or 17. I do prefer using the ones that let me taxi directly into the gate. Gate A26 is right there. So third gate in on the south side of Alpha Concourse. That's 16 right there. That'll be perfect for our arrival. Generally speaking, when you've got parallel runways like this, you'll arrive on the outside one because ATC likes to hold the inside one for departures. Of course, it varies by location, but that's generally what we're looking at here. So we're going to arrive into 16 right. I like that. We'll go ahead and set our approach to be the ILS 16 right. Now, I am also playing with VATSIM, which is simulated air traffic control. There's someone sitting at home simulating air traffic control duties. So we're going to follow whatever they say. They might change up the runway on us. So we're taking the Shep 9 to O'Neill, and then via Porter into the Alley 2 arrival to runway 16 right. We're expecting the ILS on 16 right in Denver. So that should hopefully be pretty easy. Now, we do also want to pull up the airport diagram. That way we can follow around on the ground. I know Minneapolis decently well. However, it is a very large airport. So we're coming off of the F gates, which is down here on this concourse, and we're on the inside of the alley here. And then we're going out probably via Alpha. It'll take us Delta Alpha 10. In the circle here, hotspot 1. This is the most common place where runway incursions can occur. So we'll be mindful of that area. Makes sense that it's kind of on the corners here where there's runway intersections as well. So I'm going to go get my craft handy. Tells us what an IFR clearance contains. So it starts with the clearance point. So basically, almost always it's cleared directly out to the airport. Now, if there were traffic programs, which I don't think are really a thing in the VATSIM world because it's usually not crowded enough for that. If there are traffic programs, they'll give you an intermediate point halfway between the origin and the destination. They'll say, cleared there until you hear otherwise. Basically saying, you might need to hold here, but if we clear things up by the time you get that far, then we'll just let you come straight into the airport from there. The next one is the route. So that's basically the route that we just planned out here. I don't expect any changes here. Usually the only time you get a route change is if there is weather in the way. That's very common down here around Dallas. When there's storms, they'll do what they call swap, which is severe weather avoidance plans. And so then you frequently get rerouted. I'm really not expecting a route change there. That would really throw a wrench into my day. So we're not going to do that. Next in craft is A, that is altitude. They're probably going to tell us to climb via the SID, except maintain, 7,000. So basically, right after departure, we'll go straight up to 7, and then we'll follow the procedure the rest of the way out from there. SHEP is pretty basic. I don't think there's really many altitude restrictions. All that we see here is 16,000 for the minimum reception altitude over Worthington, so that shouldn't be a problem. Other than that, this 3,500 at 7 DME. They also do just tell us to, climb out to 7 or 8,000 or whatever they do right away. Honestly, with a large turbine aircraft like this, we're usually climbing straight out to 3,000 or 4,000 before we really do anything anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried about that altitude restriction, that 3,507 miles. So if we were really heavy or if we were smaller aircraft, that would be a potentially different situation, but I'm not worried about it. Next in our craft acronym is F, that is frequency. So that'll be our departure frequency. It'll depend which VATSIM controllers are online. I might be with Minneapolis Center the whole time. They kind of just do the top-down thing there. It's possible that they got someone on the ground or in the tower in Minneapolis, and then they would be guiding me until I take off, and then Center would take off from there. Maybe they got approach. I don't know who all they got working today. Last thing will be the transponder. That's the beacon codes that lets air traffic control know who I am. I am going to go ahead and plug in my flight plan here. So Minneapolis approach is 13547. I've also got room for my taxi instructions kind of on the bottom of my craft. I'll show you what I got here. I don't know if you can see this. This is my little handy dandy craft note. So I leave space on the bottom so I can copy taxi instructions as well.
Minneapolis burst up to 1012.
Right, so now we are basically ready for departure. So we're going to go ahead and call for a clearance.
Minneapolis approach, good evening.
We're 10 minutes to our takeoff time, so it should be good timing for us. So.
Delta 1012, affirmative.
Delta 1012, roger, you can expect that.
Okay, we'll expect 12 left, Delta 1012.
All right, Minneapolis approach Delta 1258. We got the new flight plan in there.
Delta 1258 looks good. You are cleared to the Denver airport. SHEP 9er departure, O'Neill transition, then as filed. Climb via SID, accept maintain 7,000. Expect flight level 380, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 135.47. Squawk 2607.
Delta 1258 cleared to Denver via the SHEP 9 O'Neill transition. Climb maintain 7,000. Accept 7,000 feet and expect 380 at 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 133.4 and squawk 2607.
Delta 1258, departure frequency 135.47.
135.47, Delta 1258.
Delta 1258, read back correct, runway 12 right.
1258, we'll expect 12 right. Our aircraft is apparently stuck. Okay, our game's broken. Alright, I gotta wait for this thing to boot up again. Oh, why is the plane cold? Okay. Let's time myself. No flight plan filed. Plane's cold and dark. Let's see how we do. Alright, we got ground power. Batteries are on. It's down here somewhere. There it is. All right, let's get the APU going. All right, let's get everything turned on here. get these bad boys fired up. All right, we got bleed air there. Let's start this bitch. Starting both engines at once, YOLO. All right, new departure time will be 2:20, we'll call it. All right, let's get on with Minneapolis approach. Just ignoring the fact that our engines are like kind of running right now and that we're just trusting that they're doing fine. They'll be fine. Okay, we'll tune this guy back to 133.4. Tune into ATIS again. Hopefully India. Info India, we got new information. Winds 190 now, a little bit more south and west. 3007 on the altimeter. Got that adjusted there. I'll do that here. All right, nothing else significant happening.
Delta 1012, wind 190 at 6, runway 12 left, clear to land.
12 left, clear to land, Delta 1012.
All right, we are off of the APU now. Engines are running. Let's tune this bad boy back up to 7 and ask for our clearance. Minneapolis approach, Delta 1258.
Delta 1258, Minneapolis.
Hey, we had to restart the simulation. Are we going to need a new clearance, or are we still good with that previous one?
Delta 1058, just for my verification, what was the squawk code I gave you?
Squawk 2607 for Delta 1258.
Delta 1258, thanks. Yeah, that looks good. You can just advise ready for taxi.
1258, roger. Okay, that's ready to go. Throw out flaps 1. Hopefully this part of the ground in the airport isn't bugged or my game or whatever it was. We got the flight director on. Turn auto throttle on. Map's still not ready yet. It'll get there. Just needs time. In the meantime, let's go program the computer. Why don't I do this the proper way? All right, flaps 1. And flex temp, we'll use 46 again. Why not?
Delta 1012, welcome to Minneapolis. What's the gate?
We're going to Delta 2, Delta 1012.
Delta 1012, roger. Go back to the ramp. Have a good night.
Go back to the ramp. Have a great rest of your evening, Delta 10 top.
Alright, we got the same clearance, we got that plugged in. We are ready to go here. Alright, our GPS is alive. Let us go, shall we? Finally. Alright, let's get familiar with where we are. We're backwards from what I thought we were. Okay. And Minneapolis approach. Delta 1258 is on the 1-2 right de-ice pad facing Bravo, ready for taxi.
Delta 1258, runway 12 right, taxi via Bravo.
And 1258 will taxi Bravo to runway 12 right, Delta 1258. Well, that's easy. Just run right over this tug that doesn't do jack shit for us anyway. Alright, Bravo does have just a little jog in it there, so we'll need to avoid that, but otherwise this is a very straightforward taxi. Don't mind my skills here. I'm impatient to get going at this point. Put that away, we'll get ready for our departure here.
Delta 1258, wind 190 at 6, runway 12 right, cleared for takeoff. Turn right heading 170.
12 right, cleared for takeoff, Delta 1258, and right turn to 170. Plenty of space on this runway. By the way, we just passed 12 minutes on that time, so 12 minutes from cold and dark to on the runway, not too bad. Alright, give this guy juice up to 70% N1. Make sure our engines are in the green. Oh look, our engines are in the green, cool. EGT's a little bit high. There we go, we got it set it for flex. That's the second detent on the throttles for the Airbus. And we'll just keep it right down the center line. Runway's clear. 80 knots, airspeed's alive. V1, V rotate. Up and away. Positive rate, gear up. Alright, we're coming up on about 500 feet here, and then we will turn to our assigned heading of 170. And we'll get those flaps up. Alright, we're now in the air. Nothing outside the plane matters.
Delta 1258, radar contact, say altitude.
Delta 1258 climbing through 2,200.
Delta 1258, thanks. Altitude checks. Climb and maintain 17,000. Leaving 4,000. You're clear direct to McConnell. Resume the Shep 9er departure.
Alright, Delta 1258, climb maintain 17,000 and direct McConnell after crossing 4,000. Delta 1258. Alright, it was complaining that I wasn't on the climb there. McConnell, I have no idea what that is. And Delta 1258, can you say what that waypoint was for the direct? Was that to O'Neill?
Delta 1258, it's McConnell, Mike, Charlie, Oscar, November, Lima.
Okay, roger. 1258. We got McConnell. Direct McConnell at this time. All right, and he cleaned us up to 17,000. So go ahead and punch that into the MCP now. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and plug in direct McConnell. All right, we got that plugged in. Go ahead and get lined up for that. And then we'll let the bird do the rest of the work. No, not doing anything with my controller. Plane is now flying itself, and we're just watching to make sure it does what it's supposed to. And it is not doing what it's supposed to. Okay, that sound you just heard was the autopilot disconnecting. Let's try reconnecting that and see if it'll do its job this time. Oh, I've still got it to heading mode. That's why it's not doing anything. Let's try managed heading.
And approach Delta 2251, Gulf 9, we'll request push and start on to Bravo.
Delta 2251, push on to Bravo is approved, face northwest.
Okay.
Face northwest, push on to Bravo approved, Delta 22.
We are now finally up and away.
Delta 1258, contact Minneapolis Center 133.4. Have a good night.
Delta 1258 over to Minneapolis Center 133.4. So long. Have a good night. Enjoy your holiday.
You as well.
All right, so he just handed us off to the center controller. We're going to call him up, let him know what we're climbing through and where we're going to. And Minneapolis Center, Delta 1258, climbing through 12,500 for 17,000.
Delta 1258, Minneapolis Center, welcome, climb maintain flight level 380.
Delta 1258, climb maintain flight level 380. All right, we are cleared all the way up to our cruise altitude. So now we just sit back and relax. And as such, I'm also going to throw the range on our map a little bit farther out. From Shep, it is 60 miles to Worthington, and then it's 154 from there to O'Neill, so we got a ways to go. Shep to Worthington's the short one. Alright, so there's max range on this thing. You can see O'Neill there. That's kind of our halfway point, more or less. I've got 594 miles to go to the threshold of 16 right in Denver. Away we go. All right, so we are climbing up and away. Here's our departure procedure again, so this is what I'm following. We're already cleared direct to McConnell, which is this guy here, this little triangle. And so I'm even going to ignore everything off to the right. And Delta 1258, direct O'Neill at this time. All right, they just shortened our route yet again. So we'll go direct to O'Neill now and let it take us there. Now we don't have to worry about any of these other waypoints. We're direct to O'Neill, and then from there it is en route all the way to Porter, and then that's where we pick up the arrival procedure. And Bitter is where we start our descent down from 38,000. So Bitter is our descent point. Now, Bitter is not quite in range of this yet. So Bitter is 32 miles past. We got 250 to O'Neill. We're going to be here a while. And then 123 to Porter. 20 to Hop, 39 to East, and then 32 from there to Bitter. So we got time. Now that's kind of our plan for
Delta
what our
1391
descent will be,
Traverse City Airport inside 12
but it's not going to be quite that way.
Delta
Air traffic
1391, we'll go.
Air traffic control will tell us when they want us to descend, so we'll just listen to them. But I think while that's happening, I'm going to use the potty, so. See you in a little bit. All right, so earlier it's showed that en route was open out there in Denver. If we look over here, I'm still seeing Denver Center there, so that's encouraging. I'm going to use this opportunity to go plug in their code, their frequency. We'll be ready for the handoff when that happens. So it is 127.65. And again, all I'm going to need to do is hit that switcheroni button. Oh, and since we passed 18,000 feet, that means we switch over to flight levels, which uses a standard pressure gradient. That way it's not localized to different pockets as we cross these long and fast distances. So we all just pretend like the ground is at the standard elevation and that pressure is standard and uniform. And then we're all speaking the same language as far as altitude goes. But yeah, honestly, most of this flight will be spent down in here in the primary flight display, which is probably a little bit boring, but that's what we do.
Minneapolis Center, Alpaca 2, Tango Lima, and Golf 4, ready to taxi, runway 32 left.
Alpaca 2, Tango Lima, runway 32 left, taxi via Alpha, across runway 36.
Taxi runway 32 left via Alpha, across runway 36, Alpaca 2, Tango Lima.
All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and set up the approach frequency here so that our ILS will be ready to work with 16 right.
Delta 1391, clear visual approach, runway 28.
So our ILS frequency is 111.9.
Visual approach, clear land 28, Delta 1391.
That's this guy right here. So that tells us what our approach frequency is. I'll throw in the Denver VOR as well, so that we kind of have that as reference. That is 117.9. And our final approach course is 173, so we'll use that for our VOR as well. The VOR is kind of just something that tells us where it is.
I actually cleared visual approach to the Traverse City Airport. You're going to laugh at me for this. Report your cancellation of IFR on the ground in the air. This frequency change to advisory is approved. The tower is closed. Sorry.
No problem. We'll report cancellation at Delta 1391. And clear the approach to the airport.
Right, now for my VOR, for my second VOR, I should say, I'm going to just plug O'Neill in. In this case, I can just use the code instead of the frequency. You can do either or, so I figure I'd just go ahead and set it up now so we got as much information as possible in there. Now I do notice that when I plug in 117.9, it's picking up no 9, but we actually want it to only pick up Denver. So if I tell it to only pick up Denver, honestly, it doesn't really change anything. But this way, it'll only look at Denver and not get too confused. And we'll plug that 173 back in. And our current heading right now is about 237. So we'll plug that in for the heading, or correction, for the course on that VOR. And actually, I'm going to reverse course on, no, I do want it to be 173. Never mind. Now, same for the localizer. I could plug in DQQ on that, so it would use that code instead. But in that case, I prefer using the frequencies. By plugging in the alphabetic code, it basically, the airplane just got pre-plugged in reference points for each of these. So all that would do is tell it to look up what the code is for Denver, and then it would plug that in. But realistically, that's not really a thing. I'm feeling lazy, or bored, I should say. So let's go ahead and set up some of the required information for our future phases of flight. The default settings for cruise and descent will work just fine. Let's go check our METAR out in Denver. Let's see if we can get an update on this one. Still reporting light rain. This is from 153 Zulu, which is about half an hour ago, 40 minutes ago. Light rain, few clouds at 5,500. Cool, that's pretty clean now. Temperature's down to 21, so that's down quite a bit. Altimeter is 3014. That is what I'm going to plug into here. 3014. Temperature is 21. That'll probably be a little bit lower. We'll guess 20. Wind is 200 at 7. 200/07. Transition altitude for Denver will be 12,000, we'll say. And we're going to use flaps 3 for it. So our approach speed will be 140. Landing speed will be 135. Can't throw the full flaps out until we're at 142, thereabouts. Or need to get them out by that point, I guess. All right, so let's check our progress again. GPS is looking good. If we look at the flight plan here, we're still 188 from O'Neill, so we got a ways to go. I am just hoping that Denver Center is still open by the time we get out there. All right, now it looks like we've got a feeder route into Denver, so they've got this all set up. So here's Kipper here on our arrival procedure. And if we look at our approach procedure, we see Kipper here feeds into Haley, and then Skim J and CU. But our first point of any real reference here, or I guess Kipper is the initial approach fix. That's what the IAF there means. None of these others are indicated as IAF. We do have an intermediate fix here, so we could use that if we needed to. That's kind of like, that'll act as our first checkpoint. So at Sakich, we should be at 10,000. 10,000 at Sakich. And it even says that here. We need to be at 10,000. Then we follow it all in. And really, it should be pretty straightforward. So 173 degrees. Elevations 5434. Touchdown area, though, is at 5326. So somewhat significant incline, it looks like, then. Nothing indicated here. Let's look at the... don't need anything else from Minneapolis at this point. Let's look at the airport diagram for Denver. Should have had this up anyway. So it's, well, I guess this whole side, because this down here is 5327. This is here's 5322, so not really an incline on that. If there is an incline, it's probably just the further out you get. Yeah, so I don't know what the reference point of 5400 is. Should be labeled somewhere on here. There it is. 5434. So I guess the far side is almost 200 feet higher. Or at least 100 and change. Which, on the scale of the Denver airport,
1391
is
down clear at Traverse City. Cancel the IFR.
Delta 1391 IFR cancellation received. Frequency change approved. Are you coming back out?
Affirmative.
Roger. Just call me on the outbound.
Okay.
so in the scheme of Denver airport here, it is humongo. So this runway we're landing on is 16,000 feet long, aka more than 3 miles. And then there's another 2 miles south of there. So this point that's 100 feet up is about 5 miles away, or like 25,000 feet. So a rise of 100 feet and 25,000 feet is pretty insignificant. Less than 0.5% grade, so not much. It's just a giant ass airport. When we land, we'll probably be able to take, well, maybe we'll be able to take this high speed here on Delta 5. That'd be nice. And then from Delta 5, they might take us out onto West Bravo, and down the side here, down to Alpha South is where we want to be. Or it's possible they just take us Delta all the way down to West Alpha and feed that directly into the ramp here. So I don't know which route they're going to give us here. Seems like going to the end out here by the runway would be the easiest, but if another aircraft lands behind us and needs to turn off at Delta 3 and we're taxiing down Delta, then there could be a conflict there where he ends up on the runway and clogging things up. So I don't know what they're going to prefer to do here. We shall see. In any case, I'll kind of get all zoomed in on that point there so I know where I'm going. And my approach here, I want to be up here so I can see what we do on the initial part here, and then once we get down to it, this profile here is much more important. Obviously up here, everything is pretty straight. It's just you fly into the airport, into the runway, so it's very straight. So having the profile view of it helps know what's going on a little bit better. There is a missed approach procedure here. That's what all this mumbo jumbo is. So it's a straight climb to 5,900 feet, which is only about 500 feet off the ground. Then we turn right to 12,000 feet, heading 218. And you can kind of see that here. This is that dashed line. And then basically we just intercept a VOR, and then we fly to this waypoint. So realistically, this waypoint's going to be way out here somewhere. And then you hold on that waypoint until you get something from air traffic control. In practice, what happens, you say you're going around and air traffic control tells you what to do right away, and then this whole missed approach procedure is totally moot. So I think I did fly a published missed approach procedure once in my instrument flight training, just like to get practice doing that in case we need to. But it's always something you want to brief. One of the things that could happen is you could lose communication. And then say you're not aware that there's an aircraft on the runway, so you'll see that as you get kind of down to the threshold of the runway there, and see an aircraft on there, and you're not talking to ATC because something's broken.
Lima on Echo, holding short 32 left.
And so you'll go around for that aircraft that's on the runway.
Alpaca 2 Tango Lima, fly runway heading away 32 left, clear for takeoff, wind calm.
Fly runway heading, clear for takeoff, runway 32 left, Alpaca 2 Tango Lima.
And since you're not in contact with air traffic control in those situations, you end up just having no option but to follow the published miss, even though it's inefficient and yucky. That's all you got.
Yep, center, it's Delta 2251 climbing through 10,900 first set, wind 7,000.
Delta 2251, Minneapolis Center, welcome. Climb maintain, level 360.
360, Delta 2251. 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 360, Del
I'm going to see if we can speed up a little bit here. That's not going to let me put in a mock, or I'm not doing it the right way. Oops. Nope. It might just not let me use a mock number. That's fine. The thing's only flying Mach 0.78. We get at least 0.79. I think it lets us go to 0.81, which, since we're not paying for the gas, would be, you know, preferable for me. It's fine. So we do have the option to add this terrain map onto the flight display here, on the nav display. We'll probably do that as we go into Denver. There's really not mountains in the immediate proximity of the airport, but from enough distance it should show the Rockies as we come into land, as we're on our descent procedure. Should see them off to our west. So I'll throw that on when we get down there. Our true airspeed is 454 knots. We told them we'd be doing 452, so not a bad guess. In the small single-engine planes I fly, it's usually off by about 20 knots, which in that size plane is a lot more significant than 2 knots is in this size plane. Since we're above 10,000 feet, sterile cockpit is not in effect, so we can just sit here and chill out. Talk about masks. Yo, I'll drop my hot take about masks. So my whole thing is that, like, I think vaccinated people should not need to worry about masks. And what's unfortunate is people who work in jobs where there's no choice but to interact with the general public, who you have to assume is not wearing a mask, unvaccinated in some cases. You can't assume that everyone is either vaccinated or wearing a mask, in other words. And so my whole opinion on it is that if I'm going to, I'm vaccinated.
Delta 1273 at Omaha, information Bravo, I have for
Delta 1273, Minneapolis Center, good evening. Flight Tree 50 is going to be unavailable for your rate of flight down to Houston, George Bush, we like 3436.
We could probably, yeah, we could go at the flight level 360, Delta 1273.
Roger. Delta 1273, clear the George Bush Intercontinental Airport is filed, clock maintain 5,000. Expect level 360 in 10 minutes, squawk 3620.
Okay, we're cleared as filed up to 5,000. We'll expect flight level 360, 3620, Delta 1273.
Delta 1273, back correct. Advisor to taxi, runway 32 left.
32 left, we call 1273.
Back 2 Tango Lima, radar contact, climb maintain.
So one thing you're doing when you're listening to the radios here is just paying attention to what's going on.
4800, 2 Tango Lima.
So 2 Tango Lima is a small aircraft out in Traverse City, which I think is northern Minnesota somewhere. It's within our same airspace. In this case,
2251, clear direct Billings.
It's in our same airspace in this case because the center controller is taking the entire Minneapolis center, which is a very large chunk of airspace, and in reality, no single person manages all of that at once. I think even like the red-eye controller is split it into 2 or 3 parts. So, and during the day, it's much more granular than that. But anyway, I'm always listening to see who else is on frequency. In practice, in real life, they're probably going to be a lot closer to me than these folks are. But there's a plane departing Omaha, which I think I'm coming up on Nevada, or Nebraska, I mean.
Packet 2 Tango Lima, climb maintain, level 360 now.
Climb maintain, flight level 360, packet 2 Tango Lima.
So I hear this guy departing Omaha, which is probably kind of in front of me. He's climbing up to 360, so at no point will he be crossing through my altitude since I'm higher than that.
India Charlie Tango.
Third Wichita Tango, Wichita VOR, packet 2 Tango Lima.
And he is also headed southbound, and if he's getting cleared to Wichita, he's probably well ahead of me and to the south, so I'm not too concerned about him. Then I've got a guy, it sounds like, out in Minnesota somewhere that just got cleared out to Billings, so out to Montana, so he's probably far north of me. And then the other guy's that guy out in Traverse City, northern Minnesota somewhere, maybe around, he was at Minneapolis earlier when I was there before I crashed. And by crashed, I mean game crashed. I did not crash the plane. I would never. Immediately before recording this video, I did land a little long on a runway and end up in the grass at the end, but shit happens. All right, so I have my little range indicators here that show how far these things are away. I am just about 80 miles from O'Neill at this point now. I've got Bitter at about 300 miles. That's where I'm going to start my descent. So I've kind of got that in mind, and we'll just go check to make sure if that makes sense. So Denver's 400 miles away, so my descent will be about 100 miles from the airport. That checks out with the logic that I have in my head. So this is kind of what you do as a pilot constantly, is just checking to make sure, hey, that thing that I said earlier, in this case, start my descent at Bitter, does that make sense with the other things that I can use to cross-check that? General rule of thumb I use is you need about 100 miles to descend from normal airline cruising altitude. That's a very give or take thing. Perhaps a better rule of thumb is a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 1,000 feet, you're going to go 3 miles. So I'm up here at 38,000 feet. The airport is at 5,000 feet. So that's a difference of 33,000 feet. Multiply that by 3. 99 miles. So 99 miles away from the Denver airport is where I need to worry about my descent. So if it's, and Bitter sounds like it's about 120 miles away from there. This is the 320 mile range here. And so that's why I'm saying if it was just off the top there, it was at about 300, not quite 320. And so I'm kind of just paying attention to all these different pieces of information and make sure I understand what's going on with my plane and what's going on around me. I can also just, occasionally check up on the wind. Earlier when we were doing our weather briefing, saw not really much winds aloft at all, and that is consistent with what we're seeing here. It's just 10 knots wind, kind of a mild quartering headwind, but not really anything that's affecting us greatly. Our airspeed is 455, our ground speed is 451, so we're losing 4 knots. We're going 1% slower than we could be because of wind, but big deal. That'll make a difference of a minute on this flight, which when you're flying for nearly 2 hours is not much of a concern as a passenger, and especially given that this is actually very favorable winds compared to normal. Usually there'd be a pretty good breeze coming out of the west, so pretty lucky to only be losing 4 knots to it. So no complaints here. The air's been really smooth so far. Can be a little bit hard to tell from inside the cockpit here, just looking at the instruments. But usually you'll see some wing tilt and some altitude changing. This guy out here on the right is the vertical speed indicator. So this green line is what I'm doing. This yellow line is 0. I've got my altitude here, so I've got this plugged in to be at 38,000. See, it's holding 38,000.
2241, contact Denver, center 127.65.
Just double checking my frequency, make sure I got the right one there. This tells me that I'm on the standard reference datum for the air pressure. This American guy, he must be in front of me. And he's going over to Denver Center as well, so he's generally headed southwest. So he might be doing the same route as I am. Or he's going to LA or something in that direction. So I'm using the standard datum, which you'll do anytime you're above 18,000. This guy down here is my heading. Right now, all we see is the yellow and the green. There's also purple that'll sometimes show up there. You also see a purple up here. Now, what that is the landing system when you see that purple. And so the yellow is always where you are. The green is where you're going.
Data 2046 Chicago Center closed, change to advisor approved.
Yeah, 2046, what you get?
And so this little diamond here tells me what direction the plane is actually going. The yellow is where I'm facing. So here you see the diamond is a little bit to the right. That means I'm being pushed over to the right, which makes sense with the wind that we're seeing here. It is coming from our left to our right, so it's pushing us that direction. That symbol is also consistent with what we see here. So this yellow is the direction we're pointed, and this green green diamond is showing us what direction our plane is actually going. So it's a degree or two that we're being pushed to the side here. This green line here is the flight plan that we plugged in, so that's where the GPS wants us to go. Let's see, back to this, to our primary flight display. On the left side, we've got airspeed. So this strip here tells us what our airspeed is. Right now we're doing about 262 knots. More importantly, when you get to these very high altitudes, you're concerned about this number at the bottom. This is our Mach speed. We're currently doing Mach 0.781. Above Mach 0.8 or so is when air on the wings starts to go supersonic, because parts of the air flowing over the wing go faster than the airplane is moving. So if the airplane is moving almost the speed of sound, then the air going over the wings will be above the speed of sound. And these planes are not designed to do that. They are very inefficient and just aren't able to power through that, honestly. So for this aircraft, I think it's Mach 0.83 or 0.85 or something like that. You do start to see some of that drag come in as you get above 0.78. And so for that reason, 0.78 is kind of the universally accepted best speed for the Airbus, being that point where it's still as fast as it can be without needing to power through that supersonic flight regime. So it's fuel efficient. So it's that perfect trade-off. So on the speed strip here, we see this little, the red barber pole here. That is where we would be overspeed. If we see it below us, that is where we'd be underspeed, aka stalling. When you're overspeed, it means that something is a problem. So in this case, that would be a Mach overspeed, meaning we're hitting that point where plane's just inefficient, not able to keep up with the speed, which isn't a horrible issue. That's not a structural failure. Now, if it's not a Mach overspeed, it does still look the same.
Delta 2051 back.
And so if it's not a Mach overspeed, then it is a structural overspeed.
Okay.
And that would mean that we are potentially infringing on damage on the aircraft. So anytime you're in the overspeed, it'll give you a warning about it. And it's obviously much more aggressive when you're underspeed and it's stalling. The purple triangle here is the...
Delta 1223, runway 32 left, taxi via Foxtrot Delta Alpha, cross runway 36.
The purple triangle there is what the auto throttle is trying to do.
Foxtrot Delta Alpha, cross runway 36 Delta.
So in this case, it is choosing that it wants to be at Mach 0.782, and so that's where this purple triangle is. It's just keeping it right there. Again, the yellow here is what our speed actually is. Now, moving inside the... this is a combination of... Well, this is pretty much just the attitude indicator here. So, if you've ever heard the phrase, keep the blue side up, the blue in this thing is the sky. The brown is the ground. And so you want to obviously not be upside down, so you keep the blue side up.
Alpaca 2, Tango Lima, contact Kansas City Center 125-172. Have a good flight.
Kansas City Center 12572 for Alpaca 2, Tango Lima. Good night.
Now the yellow triangle at the top here tells us what that would be a wings level attitude. This yellow triangle here moves to the right or left as we bank. And so this is 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees of bank. Normally in aircraft like this, you'll only see 30 degrees used. If pilots are hand flying it and there's an urgent situation requiring a turn, maybe they go to 45. You usually won't see more than that, and you just won't see that typically unless something is seriously wrong. That being said, we actually do practice attitude upset recovery, and I've done that in the Airbus simulator, and it was very cool. And the one that was really fun is 30 degrees pitch down. So that's very steep for an aircraft like this. Like, the most you'll normally see pitch down is maybe 10 degrees. You'll pitch up maybe 15 or 20, but you'll pitch down no more than 10 degrees typically. If the flight goes normally without any problems, your nose is pretty much right on the horizon, maybe a degree or two under, but for the most part, you're going to be not
Delta
pitching 30 degrees down, which is pretty steep.
Good night.
So the attitude upset recovery, that was my favorite, was 30 degrees down, 110 degrees rolled, so it's actually slightly inverted. That was fun. You get a little bit scared
Delta
in there.
1258, contact Denver Center 127.65.
All right, Delta 1258 over to Denver Center 127.65. So long, have a good night. Denver Center, Delta 1258 with you, level at flight level 380.
Delta 1258, Denver Center, hello.
All right, so I'm looking at my V-Pilot display over here, and Denver Center is the only one I see awake and alive, so we don't need to worry about approach, tower, or ground out in Denver. So it should just be the one frequency all the way in. I'm not going to worry about pre-programming another one. Or perhaps I'll throw in 122.8, which is Unicom. That's basically just the frequency that we all agree to talk on if there's nowhere else to. So that way, if the center closes, if he goes and sleeps for the night or whatever, I can still talk to other aircraft around as long as they're also participating in that same thing. And actually, another interesting thing with the radios is that pilots will usually have guard tuned in.
406, 11 miles from Marin, maintain 7,000 until established low clouds are cleared. ILS from 16 right approach.
Okay, so we just heard a guy get cleared for the 16 right, and it looks like he was being vectored to Marin, so...
So you know this will 06 was up for us. Affirm, 7,000 still established on the low clouds are cleared. ILS from 16 right approach. 7,000 still established on the low clouds are cleared. ILS approach from 16 right. You know this will 06. American 7412, Hyman maintain flight level 360, cleared out Gallup.
All right, so we got a United that's on final approach into Denver. Got an American flight, probably leaving Denver, going to Dallas, so he's fine. Don't need to worry about either of those. We're still hundreds of miles from Denver, 337 to be specific. Okay, let's finish up with the attitude indicator here. So we've got the little L-shaped bars here on either side. This tells us where our wings are, basically, relative to the horizon. So we see the horizon here. Our wings are up here, so the wings are pointed a little bit up from the horizon. And this yellow dot here is where the nose is pointed. Let me turn off... actually, I can't turn off the flight director right now since the autopilot is on. But yeah, this is the horizon here. We're pitched up 2.5 degrees right now. We're flying flat. We're pitched up 2.5, which means our angle of attack, basically the relative difference between where our nose is and what direction we're going, is 2.5 degrees. So that's well within normal range. If that got up to about 15 or 17 degrees, that's where you're stalling.
30 Foxtrot. Denver Center, squawk 6535.
Squawk 6535, working air 5230 Foxtrot.
Now this green crosshair here is the flight director. So that is the autopilot saying, this is where I want to go. If this vertical line is off to our right, it means it wants us to bank further to the right. And if the horizontal line is above our thing, it means it wants us pointing the nose up a little bit higher so we can, climb more or whatever. Now, in the case of this one, it's right in the middle, which means we are pointed exactly where the flight director wants us to be. That's because the autopilot is doing that very well for us.
Denver 30 Foxtrot, radar contact 45 miles south of Pueblo, via wire 16,500. The Pueblo altimeter 3012.
3012 for King Air 30 Foxtrot.
Now I'm going to sound like an idiot because I don't actually know what the name for this bar on the top is.
Approach 123.8.
But it's related to the MCP, so basically...
United 406, contact the Denver Tower 132.35.
132.35,
Oh, Denver Tower is up. 132.35. It's just out of range for me. That's why I wasn't seeing it. So 132.35, we'll get that queued up. Why not, right? I might have ATIS to pick up at some point too. But ATIS will just do text and not bother with the frequency. Actually, you know what? Let's listen to it. That'll be fun. Once that comes in, we'll listen to it. Anyway, so the MCP, basically everything we plug into the Autopilot here. This is kind of the user interface for the Autopilot up here is what the MCP is. And then a couple other things that relate to how we see things on this map.
Denver Center, Baron 4787 Echo, climbing to...
But it basically tells us everything as it's happening. So
487 Echo, Denver Center.
there's 5 different panels here. So on the left, it tells us what speed mode is active. In this case, we're set to managed Mach speed, meaning the Autopilot is controlling what our speed is, and it's doing it in terms of Mach. If it said speed there, it would be doing it in terms of airspeed, this guy, instead of Mach, which is this guy. Now, if it had a star next to it, it would mean that we're telling it what we want it to do instead of it deciding what to do. It kind of has like a best image in its head of what it wants to do. And we can tell it, no, I would prefer that you keep our speed at 180 instead of 140. And then it'll still do that. It'll carry out that instruction for us. So it'll still follow that guidance, but it'll also put this star here indicating, hey, just so you know that this is something that you asked for. It's not what I wanted to do. So we say, okay, that's fine. Now the next one over is our altitude state here. In this case, hold on. I get confused between the Airbus and the Boeing on this one. I fly in both, so and in practice, no one flies 2 very different aircraft like that. So this is not something you need to worry about.
Denver 3455 Echo, Denver Center, roger. Denver 87 Echo,
next one here is the altitude state. So in this case, it's just set to cruising altitude. We've got it set to 38,000. And it would be the same thing here. So if we were telling it a certain thing, there would actually be a few different things that it could show us here. So it might show us FLCH, which is flight change. Basically, you tell it to go full idle on the engines and descend, or basically full power on the engines and climb, and just say do your best with there while keeping the same speed. And so it uses pitch to control the speed instead of throttle to control the speed. It just sets the throttle a set amount and then pitches up if you're going faster and pitches down if you're going slower. And it basically just does maximum performance climb at a steady speed. So that's pretty cool. Or same for a descent. So that would be a flight change. It could be vertical speed where you tell it specifically, I want to climb at 1,000 feet per minute. And it would just carry that out. You would sometimes do that if your plane's having a hard time getting up to your cruising altitude and you want to just get it there at whatever speed it can and then try to get back to cruising speed after. Because you don't want to climb really slow. Air traffic control doesn't really like that. So you want to just tell it to finish the climb and then we'll take care of the speed later. So that's usually when you're using vertical speed. I'll occasionally use it outside of that too. Like if I don't need a very quick descent, I'll just set it to a certain vertical speed, say 1,500 feet per minute, kind of let it mosey its way down.
Maintain VFR at or below 16,000. The Springs altimeter 3025.
We'll maintain VFR at or below 16,500 and 3025 for the altimeter for the 3025.
And obviously it wouldn't show the cruise here if we weren't cruising. It would just say altitude or maybe alt hold. The next one here is the lateral situation for aircraft. So in this case, we've got it set to nav mode. On Boeing's, this is known as LNAV or lateral nav. basically saying follow the flight plan we plugged into the flight computer, into the FMS.
Denver Center, hello, SkyWest 3339.
So it's currently just following that.
5220.
Now, we could have it set to heading mode, and that would be a case where it would be heading with the star, because we would always be telling you what heading to follow if we did that. We could also, I think you can in the Airbus tell it to just maintain present heading, and then it would just be heading without the star. I don't think there's really anything else. I don't know what it does in a hold. I don't know if it shows a special message when it's holding, because that's, you're changing headings frequently there, but it's in a very controlled way, so I don't know what it does there.
Scout 3339, radar contact 60 miles south of Cuba, your flight level 320.
I don't recall what the fourth box does. I think it relates to if it's picking up the instrument landing system, and so it would tell you if it's intercepting the localizer and glide slope there. I think that's what it is. I can't remember for sure, though. The fifth box here just tells you what autopilot modes are activated, so it shows me that I'm flying on autopilot 1, and I've got the flight director active, and auto throttle is also active. So it's kind of like a big picture what's going on. This whole display is designed in such a way that if something is wrong, it flashes at you. So earlier when we were in the early part of our climb, this was flashing at me saying, hey, you got to change over to the standard datum plane instead of using those localized altitude settings.
SkyWest 3339, you're closing step away 10 minutes.
If you're hand flying the aircraft and you overshoot your altitude up or down, it'll start flashing at you saying, hey, you missed your altitude. And there is an audio warning on that one as well, which can get really annoying when you just want to fly the plane, especially if you're visual.
Level at flight level 370. Delta 278, Denver Center, ident.
And I can't remember if in the simulation, if it throws a terrain warning at me every time I try to land. It might. In practice, obviously, that doesn't happen. Unless you're flying into Dallas Love from the south, in which case it'll tell you you're about to hit about 9,000 obstacles on the way in. It's also got different messages for how urgent it is that you're about to hit an obstacle. And so I know pilots are trained at Love to ignore the light push you like, hey, there's an obstacle like pretty close below you, just so you know. And only take evasive maneuvers if it says you're about to hit an obstacle, pull up. If it says that, you got to pull up. If the plane tells you to pull up, just pull up. That's how it would be. Unless you can like see the ground and see everything on it. But if the plane tells you to pull up, pull up. Unless you see a runway that you're about to land on. If you don't see the runway, don't land. It's as easy as that.
Delta 278, American attack 50 miles south of Rock Springs, New York, flight level 370.
I love the way this guy says Delta, by the way. I think that's all the cool stuff I have to show you. Like, this is all just radios down here. Oh, okay, so this is kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, I should probably also take that down a little bit. So, this is the throttle here. This stripe here is the throttle. And so it kind of tells you what's going on. There are a few different settings. So, this one at the very top is toga. So that's takeoff and go around power. You can press the button on the side of it, which, see if I can find it in the dark here. I don't know where it is. There's a button on the side of the throttle lever here.
Climb and maintain 1,000. That's your final there today.
Alright, that was 1,000.
I'm going to keep looking for it. I'm not going to give up on this fight.
Direct Lucy.
Oh, I'm sorry. The button disconnects auto throttle. There's a way to engage toga without having to push the whole thing up, but I don't remember how to do it, unfortunately. Which, you know, good thing I'm not a trained pilot on this plane who carries passengers' lives in my hands, because then I should know how to do that.
Denver Center, Skywest 3339.
Anyway, Toga is like maximum power that says give me everything out of the engines that you got. So there's 3 detents here. I'm going backwards. So Toga is the 3rd detent. Detent is basically a place where the throttle snaps in place. Now the 2nd detent, so one back from Toga, is Flex MCT. So Flex is when you tell it to basically not throw its back out during takeoff. You say, give me all the power for takeoff, but don't hurt yourself doing it. And same idea for MCT. That's basically the highest you want the engine revving for a continuous period of time. So maximum continuous thrust. The next one below that is climb. That's the 1st detent. So when you're throttling up, the first time it snaps into a position. That's the climb mode. Second one's flex. So during takeoff, you usually go straight to the second one. And if you're in a situation where you need as much power as possible, you go all the way up to Toga. So 3 clicks. That first click though is climb power. So basically you throw it into the second click for takeoff in that flex position. Then you bring it back 1 click to climb once you get about 1,000 feet up in the air. And that kind of lowers the engine a little bit more. So maximum continuous thrust is the most that you could get out of the engine, but we usually don't need to hammer it that hard even, so we give it a little bit easier by lowering it to climb. And then below that is auto throttle, so you basically say, don't go above this amount of throttle, but hold it somewhere in the middle. At auto throttle, the plane really flies itself.
Alpha Foxtrot Tango, climb and maintain 11 at 11,000. That's your final.
Now, all of these settings are based on auto throttle being active, which in the Airbus, auto throttle is almost always active.
VFR below 16,000. Contact Springs approach 124.0.
Sierra below 16,500 and going to approach on 124.0 for King Air 3 Sierra Foxtrot. Thanks so much.
So auto throttle is almost always active in the Airbus, but you can control it manually if you turn off the auto throttle, and then it'll do. There's these numbers here that tell you what the power setting is, and so you can control that manually if you want to, if you need to, if auto throttle is not working for whatever reason. You can also idle power is another detent, so it'll snap into place at idle power. That will always throw the engines in idle even if you are set to auto throttle. And then you've got reverse back from there. So it'll actually, you have to pull some stuff up to throw it into reverse, and then you bring it further back, and that's how you slow down on the runway better. Now, you'll see in the game I don't actually control any of this by hand. I use my controller to control my throttle, which, by the way, it's stuck on my keyboard cable, so I really got to free that. But yeah, so I use A and the B button on the controller to control my throttle. So I can press buttons here and make the throttle move up and down, which since I'm in auto throttle won't really matter. But that's my pretty plane. I hope you like it. We're coming up on the Porter waypoint here, so I'll throw up the chart again here and bring this over so you can follow along. In the plane here, I've actually got 2 options for how I want this to be displayed. I can change this over to plan mode, and then these headings will align. Plan mode keeps north up. I prefer doing it in arc mode. You can also do nav mode, which kind of lets you see what's behind you, but it's not very often important. And then VOR and landing system mode. So VOR makes this work just like a regular VOR would work, which I realize probably doesn't mean much to you if you're not familiar with flying. But you can fly it that way. And then ILS shows you an ILS just like it would in an old school plane as well. So yeah, there's kind of different settings that you have here, but we're going to use arc. Oops, one more. We use arc mode is the one that is most commonly used here because it lets you see what's in front of you, which is what's important. Now, if I throw on terrain, I don't think, even if I extend this out, I don't think it's going to show me terrain that far out. Yeah, it's just not loaded in. And I think in real life it doesn't bother loading terrain that far out either.
United 233, contact Springs approach.
But we'll see it as we get closer and start descending. It'll show us where that terrain is. I think it starts showing up 10,000 feet below us, maybe 5,000.
The apps from the airport in sight. Delta 278, descend via the Longs 1 arrival, runway 16
okay,
right.
so you can see we're in a little bit of a right turn here. So our wings are tipped just a little bit. This shows us what our angle of bank is. It didn't even quite hit the first line there, so it's maybe an 8-degree bank, 7 or 8 degree bank. All right, so just put a white border around this, which means something changed or is about to change. I think it might have reverted back to some sort of setting as it was turning there. So it's just saying, hey, something's going wonky with the altitude. It's just having a hard time staying flat. But we're all good.
Good evening, Denver Center, Skyline 1050.
All right, as a refresher, at Alley we need to be above 19,000. And then as we go further in from there, come into head at 16,000 will be our target. Hit gun at 14,000. That's a hard 14,000. No greater or less than. And Kipper's at 12,000. And we do have speed restrictions at head as well.
Clear visual approach, runway 15.
So like I described with the flight change mode, hold on.
Via the ALT arrival, runway 16 right. Transition, Denver, altimeter 3014.
Delta 1258 will descend via the LE2 arrival and transition for 16 right. And can I get that altimeter again?
3014.
3014, affirmative. Delta 1258.
Number 24, runway Mike, runway 15, clear to land, and wind 2006.
All right, so he's telling me what I basically already knew, but he's letting me basically just, as long as I follow the rules in this chart, I can do my own descent. So that way he doesn't have to step me down progressively as I get closer and closer. Just lets me fly it myself. So I will start my descent at Bitter. I'll probably actually overshoot it by a few miles before I start descending, but now would be a perfect time for a potty break, I think. I do not know what's going on with this altitude indicator here. I don't know why it keeps telling me something's going on there. One of my friends who's a pilot was describing his process of going through Airbus training, and he said that his favorite part was every time, or how often he had to ask the question, why is the Airbus doing that? Because it was just like, the plane just does its own thing sometimes. And I mean, yeah, frankly, there are times where he's like, these are comments he made while carrying passengers. Now, he had a more senior pilot in the other seat, so there's no operational risk there or anything. But it's just one of those things where it's like, why is the Airbus doing that? And it's usually something that it's just an indicator here saying, like, hey, this is changing. And you're like, no, it's not. It's fine. Or it's something like it starts just wandering off path and you say, no, stop that. And you turn off autopilot and fly it the way it needs to. But the Airbus do be a little wonky sometimes. Sometimes you're just stuck in the wrong mode somewhere, or you didn't follow all the steps you were supposed to. Whatever the case could be. So I suppose I should retract these landing lights. Oops. Can turn off the nose light as well. Don't need the wing lights. You don't need to see ice on there. Always leave the beacon on. Don't need the strobe lights. I don't actually know what auto strobe does. Okay, so what I just saw come on here is Denver Shower. Denver Tower is now showing up on my list here, so I'm just going to double check my frequency. I think I plugged that one in earlier when I was peeping over there. Oh, and Denver ATIS is here too. Denver Tower East 132.35. 132.35. We are plugged in, ready to go on that. let us listen to the ATIS while we're here. That'll be fun. So our ATIS frequency is 125.6. And so I'm still listening to VHF1. Now I can click that and listen to VHF2, I believe, as well.
Skywest 10 to D6, descend via the Longs, 1 arrival, runway 16 right, transition, Denver, altimeter 3014.
3014 on the altimeter, descend via the Longs 16 right, transition.
I guess it won't let us listen to it in VATSIM unless I'm selected on it, so we'll go over there. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so it might just be text only. Which is unfortunate, but see what it looks like.
Southwest 1289, climb and maintain, flight level 340, clear direct gallop.
Alright, this is a long-ass ATIS.
Maintain 340 Southwest 1289.
That's direct gallop.
Right. Information, Foxtrot,
Papa.
253 Zulu,
Golf uniform Papa.
which was half an hour ago. Winds 110 at 6, so a little bit more easterly than we expected. So not quite the direct headwind we wanted. A few clouds at 6,000, cool. No real problems there. A couple high layers of broken clouds. We'll bust through that way before we're looking for the runway.
November 87 Echo, contact Springs approach.
Temperature is 20, which means it'll probably be 19 by the time I get there. So I'm going to amend this. Now this temperature actually doesn't affect things that much.
Denver Center, Southwest 1289.
It helps the plane predict what should happen, but
back.
doesn't really affect it that much. Same for the wind, honestly.
Denver Center, 240 micro.
We got that plugged in there.
Or Remy Mike, taxi Alpha to the ramp today.
Altimeter is 3014, so why don't I really quick switch over to change that. Oh, there's your warning that we're at the wrong altitude briefly. But we'll flip it back to standard, and then we're right where we want to be. All right, so we got the altimeter set to 3014. Okay, so it's telling us that we have hazardous weather info for Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming. I think that's those isolated storms around the area from earlier. Says we can get the information from flight service. That's basically a service that works next to air traffic control to provide information. Expecting the ILS, RNAV or visual to 16 right or 17 right. And this whole thing is talking about parallel approaches at Denver, basically. Then it's talking about the departures, which looks like they're using runway 8. I always love when they do that. That's very convenient for me to get back to Minneapolis. Runway 8 saves a little bit of time. They're also using 17 left and runway 25. So they're going the other direction too. So if I was going to Vegas, that would be convenient. Aircraft must read back assigned heading or first waypoint with takeoff clearance. No dams. So there is a closed runway. That's interesting. So this runway, 16 left, is closed at the moment. And then there's a whole bunch of taxiway closures. I assume those are all going to be associated with that runway. Let's talk about taxiway F. That's this guy up here. And we'll double check to make sure we know where those are. This is, so taxiway closures and that kind of thing are actually usually something we would brief before the flight. F is closed between CN and ZN. So here's CN. I don't know. Oh, ZN's probably right there. Okay, got it. So taxiway F is closed up there. So I guess it's taxiway Golf that we'd use to get around it if we needed to. Big whoop.
American
It's closed
7412.
between F7 and F12.
Flying figures are changed pretty today.
So it's closed basically from here on up to the end.
Yep.
Bird activity. My favorite thing to read. I think there's something that like they legally have to put that there. But when it's always there, it's useless. Wear your mask and wash your hands. That's my favorite part of that briefing. I love that. Alright, so bitter or thereabouts was where we were going to start our descent. Not going to worry about it too much yet. Bitter is 44 miles away from Ollie. We only need to be at 19. Yeah, we'll probably start at bitter.
American 2241 back.
Okay, so now you see this mode is changing. So we apparently crossed a pressure gradient, which are a lot more.
Delta T78, expect vectors ILS.
They're not smooth in this game. They're chunky.
I expect vectors 416 right approach, Delta.
But it's telling us that it's trying to get back to the altitude it wants. This is that star next to it that I was talking about. So this is the altitude that it wants to go to.
Victor Hotel Alpha Flash Tango, contact Colorado Springs French.
And so it is doing that right now.
124.0 Papa traffic.
It's getting back to it. We only changed by 20 or 30 feet, so it's just very gently kind of bumping us back up where we should be. And now it's got this white box, meaning it just changed. It's now back into regular cruise, hold, don't do anything fancy mode. And we will go ahead and bring that down. Yeah, we'll probably start the descent now. So this part's pretty easy. We just bring that down to 19,000. And it'll keep flying as is for a few seconds, and then it'll drop it. So the blue here is the altitude that you say you want it to follow. So it'll start chasing that down in just a minute. Although I wonder if because I had it in selected altitude mode, it's going to stay that way. So if I change it to managed, then it should do its own thing. There we go. I think the distinction there is if you leave it in selected mode, it'll start going right away. In managed mode, it'll kind of take its time to start the descent. So in case you accidentally adjust it in flight or something, it won't go right away. Now when we get to our alley waypoint, I am going to throw the lights on and everything so that inbound traffic can see us. I'm also going to zoom in one more time here. So alley's at 30 miles, which you can also see up here. It shows you how far you are away from it. This is the wind and airspeed information that I was showing you earlier. And then down in the bottom left corner will be the ILS information. That also shows up here. And that'll just basically verify that we're in the right place. Actually, on this screen, it's the VOR information, which I haven't thrown on. So let me throw that on. And then these arrows show where the VOR is as well. Now, VOR2 was the one that we set to O'Neill. That one's out of range at this point. We're far past it. So that one I'm just going to turn back off. But I'll leave VOR1. That is Denver. This arrow is going to point to us where Denver is. So we just kind of have that point as reference. All right, so you can see the nose here is about 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees below the horizon. So we are descending at I would call that relatively steep. I know it doesn't look steep. I don't know if we can really see here against the silhouetted against the horizon, but I don't think anyone would call that steep. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a speedy descent. Which is fine. That's what we want. 20 miles away and almost halfway through our descent. So we're basically right where we want to be. And then we'll flip over to 16,000 at head, and we'll need to reduce our speed to 250 as well. And I am going to zoom in on the part of this chart I care about. And then let's go back up here to follow this part that we care about. The other nice thing about these approach plates is that they've got information about all the frequencies here. So you don't need to look up your airport frequencies in one book and look at your approach charts in another. So now in this case, this is way more frequencies than VATSIM has. So like we have one tower frequency that's not even this one, and that's it. So not much to worry about here. Up here it shows us a little bit of information about the lighting and what we would do if the lighting was failed in some way. Here's what actually shows us what lighting to expect. I don't know if you can see this. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is where the lights will actually be. So basically the runway's right up here, right where this S is. And so this is what it'll look like. This A5 is an indicator that tells us exactly what kind of lighting that is. Again, just kind of saying what it looks like. And then this is kind of the visual to go along with it. The MALSR medium intensity approach lighting system with runway end identifier lights.
586 Denver Center, Roger.
So there's that.
Level 370.
And then here's a narrative that describes the missed approach procedure. That's identical to what these icons tell us. It's just when basically the closer you are to landing, the lower down in the chart you are. So at this point, you don't want to have to look all the way back up to the top of the page and then read this as you're going around. So having the visuals here really help understand what's going on. And then for situational awareness, you can see the dashed line and kind of see, oh, okay, so we're going to be heading off to the southwest. That makes sense. All right, so let's just check up on things here.
Number departure, South 1587, 7.3, climbing via Sid.
We are basically on top of Ali at this point. We'll drop this down to 16.
330, South 1587.
And once we get to 16, we'll have to control our speed. So we'll leave this at 290 for now. And then when we hit 16, we'll drop that down to 250. All right, then once we hit 16, I am going to do my approach briefing here. Maybe I'll wait till we get to Kipper. We'll have some time on the descent here. 23 miles to cover, so that'll give us some time to brief it. Here's a visual of that. The one thing that we got to be aware of is basically our intercept point, which for this one will be Sakich at 10,000. So Sakich at 10. If I don't remember anything else, I want to remember Sakich at 10. There's Sakich right there. So I'm going to be at 10 at Sakich. Easy peasy. Oh, that'll give me tons of time because I'll already be at 10 out here at SkimJ.
Delta 278, 13 miles from Cayley, cleared ILS runway 16 left approach.
SkimJ is math processing, about 8 miles outside of Sakich. So
Delta 278, I apologize if I misspoke. You are cleared ILS runway 16 right.
Roger, clear for the ILS.
Okay, we're going to drop down our map a little bit closer here. And we're approaching 18,000, so I'm going to bump this guy out to 3014. Information Foxtrot is what we're using.
Southwest 2396, I believe it was. Denver Center squawk ident.
Negative, Southwest 2336. Flight level 390, you need a squawk ident.
Affirm, Southwest 2336, squawk ident, please.
And I'll throw terrain on now as well,
Squawk
which
ident,
maybe I gotta go
2336.
back out to be able to see this. Not quite there.
Southwest 2336, radar contact altitude as stated, about 27 miles northeast of the Vernal VOR. Welcome aboard.
No terrain yet. I'll leave it a little bit zoomed out, so hopefully we can pick up some terrain.
Your Southwest.
All right, we're now at head. Let's get back to our chart here. Head at 16, and then we need to drop to 14 by the time we get to Higgin. Let's drop to 14. Shoot, I changed it over to hundreds. No. This is bad. This is annoying. It's not bad. All right.
Delta 1258. I don't have
Got it set to
for you. What
14,000 at
hidden.
Higgin. Excuse me. All right. So from Kipper, we turn left, and then we'll hit Sackage at 10,000. And that'll be the glide slope there. And runway altitude is 5,400. This approach is straight out, slight turn to the right, and then intercept out direct west.
Delta
Over that
1258.
intercept. Nothing fancy here. Might have parallel on the approach.
Delta 278 Denver Center rate.
Precision height 50 correction 55 26.
555.
Thank you. Delta 1258 Denver Center.
All right, so it sounds like an aircraft is unreachable there. That's not my problem. Also, I need to slow down. So we'll slow down our bird here. And this is where I'm going to flip it over to vertical speed.
Denver Center, Southwest 1289 is back.
All right, so I've got it set to vertical speed now,
1289, roger, thanks.
and I'm going to need to throw out some speed brakes, I think.
Denver Center,
So throw that to
November
50%.
42 Foxtrot. We are with you, 11.
We are currently fallen behind the aircraft. We're supposed to be at 14 at Higgin, and we're over it now at 15 and a half. We're going to
November
drop to
4220
12.
Foxtrot, Denver Center, roger. Calling maintain flight level 450.
Let's get down to 12 now.
All the way up to flight level 450. Thank you, 422 Sierra Foxtrot.
No problem. Skywest 1056. Were you expecting 16 right?
Skywest 1056, affirmative.
All right, Skywest 1056.
All right, let's throw the
You
lights
got
on.
traffic at your about 11 o'clock, 36 miles, 14,000 opposite direction. I'm going to vector you around behind him. I'm not sure what approach he's on. He's not responding. So for now, descend and maintain 11,000. You can turn left heading 060.
Going to throw the APU on just in case. Never hurts to have the APU running.
060 on the heading, Skywest 1056.
This guy was 1056. That is vectors for the ILS runway 16 right. The Denver altimeter is 3014.
3014 and vectors for the ILS 16 right.
Now, normally you'd have one pilot taking care of stuff like the APU, and one pilot would be flying the plane. And you should always be flying the plane. Or someone should, anyway. All right, let's get down to 12,000. We need to get there. And we need to slow up, too. So we're supposed to be at 12,000 and 210 at Kipper, and we're at 14,000. And not 210.
Skywest 1056. Continue that left
All right,
turn heading
let's
040.
throw out some more speed brakes.
Okay, we'll continue around to 040, Skywest 1056.
And we'll set our auto brake. That way our plane will stop as it goes up.
Delta 278, contact tower 132.35. Good day.
Over to tower 3235. Thanks for the service, Delta 278.
Tell me my brakes are low. Oh, that's my auto brakes that are low. Got it. All right, we're really descending now. That's good. I'm going to zoom in because I can no longer read that map. Sorry, terrain. Today's not your day. We're done on the arrival procedure. We'll go over to the approach. We're on this initial stage here. Should be 11.5 at Haley. We're coming up on our assigned altitude, so it's blinking at us.
That traffic is now at your about 2 to 3.
We're going to drop it to 10 here.
1000 southwestbound, reporting site.
Skywest 1056, looking.
And we're going to get this guy going down to 10. All right, and it's 10,000 at Shred is where we need to be. And then we intercept the glide slope at Sekich. Should be picking up the ILS signal at this point, so we'll throw that on.
3014. Expect the ILS runway 16 right approach.
All right, we do have lateral guidance on the ILS.
13014, 16 right southwest.
No glide slope yet, though. I'm also going to turn off
Skywest 1056, turn right heading 140.
Heading right turn 140,
right.
negative contact on it.
Localizer's alive. That seems consistent with the information I'm seeing here.
Roger,
This is telling us we're just left of it.
miles to your southeast
And we
now.
are just left of the center
vector.
line, so that's good. I'm going to throw out flaps 1. And we're going to take the speed brake back. And they are armed for arrival. All right, still no glide slope, so we're going to hold off at 10. In the meantime, I'll throw out another set of flaps. Oh, now it's telling me I'm fast, so we got to slow up. That's the overspeed alarm. I'm going to slow it to 170. Now it's telling me I'm busting in altitude. We're getting there. We're slowly descending to where we should be. All right, 20-mile final. We're going to expect a transition to tower at some point. Glide slope is now there.
Skywest 1056, you can descend and maintain 9,000.
Any minute now, he should be clearing me for the approach.
Skywest 1056, you picking up that ILS out there?
Not just yet.
All right.
All right, let me know when you get that.
Here's where I'll be for the rest of the approach. 5434 is our airport.
Actually, I've got it now.
5526 is our decision altitude, since we have the glide slope. Wow. These folks take it real seriously. Alright, I'll put that away. Sorry, that was probably blocking everything I was talking about. Okay, the glide slope is now coming in, and my simulator is frozen. Or is it not frozen? It's just slow. Okay. Let's throw it on approach mode. And we'll throw it on localizer. Oh, okay. Throw it on approach mode. And now it no longer cares about this green line. It cares about these pink diamonds. That's what it's going to chase. So let's go over what we got here. So throttle levers, that's saying that it's just doing with the throttle what it wants to do to maintain the speed that I designated it. Brake low, that means the auto brakes. Basically when we land, it'll start braking on its own. That also gets the spoilers out. The altitude is in the current setting of maintain 10,000 until you hit the glide slope. This blue always says what it's about to do. So it's about to intercept the glide slope here. Any second it'll change over there as it's just coming in on it. So it should say it right now. There you go. Put a white box around it to say it just changed. It's now following the glide slope. You see we're descending now. The loc here says we're on the localizer. Basically it's maintaining this little purple thing here. I'm going to go zoom in a little bit more.
Skywest 1056, continue the right turn heading 170 now.
They're looking for me.
Okay, we'll keep going to 170, Skywest 1056.
Denver Center's Delta 1258.
Approach speed.
I'm sorry, was that for Skywest 1056?
Affirm, Skywest 1056, when able, reduce to approach speed, showing about 100 knot overtake on that traffic ahead.
Okay, we'll slow it down now, sorry. And I've totally lost all localizer.
Alright, Skywest 1056, you want to do the visual then into 16 right?
Alright, we're going to slow it down to
I'll make this
140,
visual,
our approach speed.
Alright, Skywest 1056, continue 170, descend and maintain. I'll give you 8,000 for now.
Approach mode is activated, so I should be able to flip this back
15
to
miles.
manage speed, and it'll
Okay,
throw me
8
back
now
to
and
where it wants
7 in a
it
little
to be.
bit, Skywest 1056.
Denver Center, Delta 1258 with you.
Delta 1258, welcome to the party. You on ILS 16 right?
Delta 1258, affirm.
Alright, Delta 1258, looks like you're about 3 miles from Leeds, cleared ILS runway 16 right approach. Any contact tower on 132.35.
Cleared for the ILS 16 right and over to tower 13235. Sorry about the delay. Denver Tower, Delta 1258 with you on ILS 16 right.
Delta 1258, Denver Tower, good evening, 1110 at 6 right, 16 right, clear to land.
16 right, clear to land, Delta 1258. Okay, I'm a little fast. I don't know why I'm fast. I'm flaps 3, I believe. Or am I flaps full?
2,500.
I'm flaps 3, and I'm fast. Let's take a peek up. There's our runway. Okay, we got a little bit of time here. We're at 2,000 feet. We'll throw the gear out. That'll slow us down. Alright, we're going to watch the gear as they come down. They're in transition. This is a lot to do as a single pilot. Alright, 3 down, 3 locked. Gear's good. And the aircraft's coming off the ILS. Autopilot off. Still got auto throttle on, so it'll still maintain our speed as needed. But we're going to follow in the ILS ourselves. I'm going to do a lot of rocking and shaking about until I get back to where I want to be. Alright, turning back toward the runway now. And we'll drop our speed down a little bit. Disconnected from voice for some reason. Alright, we are now high.
Denver Tower, Delta 278, holding short of Foxtrot.
Delta 1278, Denver Tower, right on Golf to the ramp, good night. Correction, right on Golf to the ramp, good night.
Right on Golf to the ramp, thanks for the service, Delta 278, have a good night.
Alright, let's see if we can get this bad boy back under control. We were full deflection on vertical, which would normally be means for a go around, but welcome to Yellow Airlines.
500. Too low. Terrain.
Yeah, it is gonna bitch about the terrain, isn't it?
Too low. Terrain.
Of course there's terrain. We're at an airport. That's where the ground is. The airport is on the ground. I'm gonna go full idle here.
Terrain. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Terrain.
Good afternoon, Denver Tower. Skywest 1056 is checking on.
Too low. Terrain. Terrain. Too low. Terrain.
Just want to make sure I'm actually in idle here.
Too low. Terrain. Too low. Terrain.
40,
Too low. Terrain.
20, 10.
Okay, that was a hard landing.
Aircraft calling, say again.
Yes, sir. Skywest 1056 checking on. About a 5 mile final, 16 right.
Southwest 1056, Denver Tower, good evening, 1110 at 6 runway 16 right, clear to land.
16 right, clear to land. Skywest 1056.
To Denver Tower, United 1754. We are ready for push off of Bravo 25 with Foxtrot.
At 1754, Denver Tower, push start approved, straight back, stop the first line.
Push straight back to the first line, push approved, United 1754.
Denver Tower, Delta 1542, ready for push at Bravo 43 with information Foxtrot.
The 1524, pushing the alleyway, your discretion, call short of Kilo for taxi.
Push at our discretion, call it Kilo for taxi 15.
All right, we're on the ground, and I
Hold
came
short
to
of
full
Kilo
stop,
for me.
which is
Hold
no
short
good.
of Kilo.
That is 12 DA, welcome Denver, exit left, Whiskey Charlie for me, right Delta, Delta 5, short of Whiskey Bravo.
Whiskey Charlie, Delta 5, hold on, Delta 1258, stand by. All right, Delta 1258, we're off of 16 right at Whiskey Charlie.
That is 1258, right Delta, Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo, short of Foxtrot.
All right, right on Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo, short of Fox, Delta 1258. Sometimes you got too much going on, all you got to do is let ATC know. They'll be annoyed with you, but better than doing something they don't want you to do. Also worth noting, only a few of the people who do this are actually like commercial pilots, or like airline pilots, and are actually sharp on the radios. It's definitely worse off folks than me. Bunch of student pilots, I think, end up playing this game, which is good. That's all fun. All right, we're on the ground, so let's clean up our aircraft. And again, normally one person would be steering, one person would be turning off the lights. Or you wouldn't need to, like, look at it.
So 756, welcome, or correction, Skywest 1056, welcome Denver, exit left when able, join Delta southbound.
And that's why, because when you stop looking for a little bit, you get lost. All right, I'll pull my taxi chart up here again. So I am currently just getting on to Delta 5 at Delta. Which is right over here. Then I'm going to get on to Whiskey Bravo here. If I don't overshoot it. And then I'm going to hold short of Foxtrot.
Aircraft calling, say again.
And we'll just pull this guy all the way idle at this point.
So 756, let's do Delta, Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo, short of Foxtrot.
I'm sorry, was that for Skywest 1056?
Skywest 1056, A firm, Delta, Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo, short of Foxtrot.
Delta 5, Whiskey Bravo, short of Foxtrot, Skywest 1056.
All right, we'll park it here.
Delta 1258, right, golf to the ramp, good night.
12:58, right golf to the ramp. Good day. Okay, golf is the second turn.
Aircraft calling for clearance, takeoff time.
That is X-ray Alpha Sierra Delta Uniform.
X-ray Alpha Sierra Delta Uniform, Denver Tower, clearance on request number 1, standby.
I don't think my computer likes recording this while also trying to render the very fancy Denver airport. We're running it like this is basically slideshow quality here. We'll see how it looks. I can't believe this has been nearly 3 hours. I guess we did have to restart in Minneapolis. All right, I don't know how far golf goes. So it looks like it does come to an end, and that's when I want to turn left-a-rooney. Now, normally, you would be able to read these taxiway signs, but I think you need superhuman vision to be able to do that in this game. So I'm going to throw up my map, which for some reason won't come up. There we go. And we have this map that we can follow along with as we go.
Go West 1056, where are you parking?
Bravo concourse anywhere.
Go West 1056, roger. Straight into the ramp for me, good night.
Okay, straight into the ramp for Skyway 1056.
All right, we're going to take the second turn.
Citation Sierra Delta Uniform, Denver Tower, clearance is, or clearance available, advisory, just copy.
Copy, citation Sierra Delta.
I will say, beautifully rendered Denver.
Sierra Delta Uniform, Denver Tower, you're cleared to the Aspen Airport via the Connor 7 departure warner transition as filed.
I just don't think my GPU likes it. Oh yeah, GPU does not like this.
5 o'clock, 1434.
She's not having a good time. Also, why is the terminal so fucking dark? I can't see jack shit. I guess I'll eyeball it based on the map here.
Sierra Delta Uniform, read back correct. Engine start, your discretion. Call for taxi, Pine runway 17 right at Echo Charlie 11.
I guess I'll see it once I turn in, but...
Okay, we'll plan what's Echo
Going to gate Alpha 26. Which actually probably will be labeled since this is a fully rendered airport. But if we end up on 24 or 28, I'm going to say that's good enough.
1542, holding short queue.
Delta 1540, or correction, Delta 1542, Denver Tower. Roger, taxi runway 8 via Kilo, Bravo, November, Mike.
All right, let's find a gate, any gate. Hey, that gate looks great.
Taxi via Kilo, Bravo, November, Mike, Delta 1542.
We gotta swing over to get there, though. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
Hey, Denver United 1754, taxi off Bravo 25.
All right, we'll park it there. Thank you for watching. I've appreciated spending this time, you know, getting to know you all a little bit better. This has been Turtle Dove After Dark in the cockpit. Well, anyway, if you nerd out about planes, so do I, so let me know. I have a Discord, I have Twitter, I have a Twitch, I do all sorts of things, so I'll try to put all that in the description. But yeah, come find me, come hang out on Twitch. I would love to see you guys. Nothing plane related there, but I will always talk planes if you bring it up, so cool. Love y'all, see you later. Bye.